Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out, especially given what we see is currently happening right now within the state of Colorado and the fact that we're actually being kind of encouraged to not meet again. Kind of a crazy thing to do, isn't it? Well, after tonight's presentation, I'm hoping that you'll be empowered with the information you need to not only realize when it's okay, when it's not okay, but for it to be okay all the time. So tonight we're going to be talking about viral pandemic facts, strategies, and choices. You have choices. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Freedom from fear. So if you take a look at this first slide here, you'll see what looks like, maybe a virus? Which could certainly inspire a lot of people to fear at this point. It's actually not a virus, and you'll learn that as we go through the presentation. So tonight, by the end of the presentation, we're hoping that you understand the difference between pandemic cases versus fatalities, the fact that testing is simple, or maybe not, what is actually going on with lockdowns, masks, and most importantly, if you don't take anything else away, I want you to take away this last point. Prevention and early intervention is safe, it's effective, it's inexpensive, and here's the really crazy part, it's even over the counter. How many of you have been told that? You probably haven't. And the reality of every single portion of this is 2 Timothy 1:7. For, I did not give you a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and a sound mind. So anytime anything comes your direction, the first thing to do is immediately stop, go back to 2 Timothy 1:7, power, love, sound mind, go straight up to the Lord and say, show me your perspective on this. What do you say about this, Lord? Right now we're in an environment where everything is spinning and it's moving so fast and it's designed to create confusion. It's designed to create anxiety, depression, fear. That doesn't come from the Lord. Okay? Stop. And anytime you start getting that feeling, that is a warning sign to immediately do exactly the opposite. Go to a position of power, love, sound mind. Slow it down. Reject the lie. So to start with, what is a pandemic or an epidemic? Epidemic is typically restricted to one country. Pandemic is typically across the entire world. Now, the part that's really interesting is the World Health Organization, up until May 4th of 2009, had an interesting definition of a pandemic that then changed. And that change actually has gone more to what the German disease experts are now currently saying. That's a long-lasting international situation involving substantial loss and causing such lasting damage as to jeopardize or destroy the livelihood of large numbers of people. I'd say that's exactly what we're experiencing at the moment. What's interesting is in 2009, epidemiologist McKenzie proposed taking the severity of the disease into account with the definition. That was rejected. What happened? Special interests with strong connections encouraged that a pandemic would be declared as quickly as possible. Start thinking about the things this way. Start looking at things from a little different angle. The question is, who is the special interest and why would they want a quick call for a pandemic? Now, that is not the focus of the topic of this conversation, but as you watch stuff start coming down through the news cycles and everything else, look behind the scenes. Look behind the curtain. Follow the money. What's the incentive? The print on this is going to be a little small for you to see, but here's the major thing. This is from the World Health Organization, and this is the piece that I want you to see. Overall, the infection fatality rate at 51 locations across the world was 0.23%. Do you realize that's 2 out of 1,000 people This is from the World Health Organization. Their data is supposed to be the best there is, right? 2 out of 1,000, okay? For those that were under the age of 70, it was 0.05%, or 5 out of 10,000 people. Just out of curiosity, I looked at the CDC influenza, typical season numbers for 2017 going into 2018. At the peak of the flu season, they said that 10% for a period of 4 weeks was the death rate. Do you realize how much higher that is than this, what we're looking at right here? And yet we're shut down economically. Something's not passing the common sense test. These slides here, next couple of slides I'm going to go through, are put together by Ivor Cummins, who is a brilliant statistician. And he actually did a look at Ireland and UK by the numbers. And so I'll give you an idea of what you're looking at here. And if you want to learn more about Ivor's work, this came from a presentation that was featured by Pandemic Town Hall. That is pandemictownhall.com. Encourage you to go there. This is just one of 3 fantastic presentations. They're doing a great job on getting the truth out, and I'm very, very blessed to be able to learn from those great people and be a part of that group. The increased testing, there's a lot of PCR false positives. So on the top there, what you're looking at is cases. At the bottom, what you're looking at is the actual deaths. And you can see there that cases went pretty high, deaths hit their curve, and we call that a Gompertz curve, and that's a typical Gompertz curve. And then you'll see that things really minimize throughout the summer, okay? And then at the end of the summer, you'll see that cases are starting to rise again. But where are the deaths? Do you see a death rate there? And this is all strictly statistically speaking based upon the numbers that are being reported. This is not an opinion. This is just data. You look at the UK, see a similar pattern. Okay, well, that's across the ocean. Maybe the United States is super different. Okay, this is Spain. And there's a reason why he used Spain here, and that is the fact that you'll see that, again, cases are rising really high. You'll see that they actually are getting a little bit of a climb in their death rate, and it's a result of their climate. This would be normal for that climate. So with that, here's the real key to the United States. The United States, we're a little dyslexic. In the northern part of the United States, we act like UK and Ireland. In the southern part of the United States, i.e. California, Texas, Arizona, Florida, we actually look a little bit more similar to Spain and a lot more like Mexico. So what you're looking at there is you'll see that we actually get a little bit of a gentle wave action going instead of that sharp change. And that's because of the fact that the season where we will see those flus and things like that is actually air conditioning season in Florida, Texas, and Arizona. But you'll notice what we've had a little bit of a climb in our death rate, but you'll also see that we've definitely just got a lot of cases going on. Now let's take it right here to home in Colorado, because we all really want to know what's happening right here. Why are we shutting down in Colorado? Well, the question is when you look here at the bottom one, you'll see that those are the bottom one there is our death rate, okay? The top one there is our cases. And you'll see that it didn't look like we had a lot of cases in the beginning, but we've got a lot of cases right now. This is concerning. We need to shut down, right? How much are we testing? We're testing a lot. So if you don't want to see so many cases, don't test so much. The reality of the situation is, the truth is you can only go by the death rate as to what the actual virility and threat this virus actually is. And when we look at the death rate, we see some really interesting things. First of all, May 9th, how many of you here realize that we actually changed the definition of cause of death here in Colorado? That occurred on May 9th. Before May 9th, the way the deaths were being recorded, and I don't know how it's impacting this data here exactly. I had trouble figuring that out from Worldometer. Before May 9th, if you died with COVID, it was listed as a COVID death. After May 9th, thanks to the wonderful work of our representative, Mark Baisley and others, it changed to being dying from COVID. That's a pretty significant change. You can have a positive test and die in a car accident. You didn't die of COVID. You died of a car accident. But it was still being listed as a COVID death, which will falsely inflate those numbers. The other piece that you see here is you'll see a question mark because there's a little spike right there. But what's interesting about that little spike? What's interesting about that little spike is that a couple of days before that little spike, it looks like there's virtually no cases, which means someone didn't report the data those couple of days, would be my suspicion. Can't say it for sure, but it's definitely not the start of a curve because it's just a spike. So from a data perspective, we throw that out. We just consider that an anomaly in the data. Now, as I'm saying this, any death is tragic. And by no means am I minimalizing that. However, what we're not looking at and what we're not counting is the number of deaths from suicide, from domestic violence, from drug overdose, alcohol overdose. The depression and the anxiety is going through the roof. And I think that when we take and we start looking retrospectively from this time, we're going to find we may have actually done this to ourselves. So what you're seeing is the PCR testing rates going up there, and that is dramatically increasing those numbers. You'll see that the death count actually dropped significantly. Testing, not so simple. How many here know what a PCR test is and feel like they could actually give a description of what a PCR test is? Yeah. PCR stands for polymerase chain reaction test, okay? It's a diagnostic test that is used to determine the fragments of genetic material that are coming from the virus. It's the equivalent of looking for car parts after a car accident on the freeway, and there could be car parts scheduled, thrown all over the freeway. And so because you see those car parts across the freeway, you're saying, wow, this must have been a really bad accident. This must be a real problem. And I need to watch out, this car is going to kill me. No, that's the past evidence of what already happened. It also just so happens that if you had the flu back in, say, September of 2019, you can still come up positive on this test from a common cold back in September 2019. I don't know about you, but I really don't want to be called a positive COVID test from the cold that I had back in September of 2019. So there's some real issues with accuracy of this test. It also just so happens that the individual who created this test, who bless his heart is deceased, specifically stated it was never intended to be used the way that we're using it. So we have some real concerns about what is a true positive, what's a false positive, and what type of action we should take. Certainly, we shouldn't be quarantining based upon the PCR test. The second test here, a little bit more reliable, antibodies testing. It's a serology blood test that detects whether or not you have developed antibodies. You'll see either IgM or IgG antibodies. The IgM will show up early on. IgG typically takes around 14 days to show up. We like to say, oh, you're immune now because you have antibodies. Or maybe you're not. We're now finding that we are actually seeing cases where people don't have antibodies and they're immune. We see cases where people have antibodies and they're not immune. I don't know if I want to count on that for testing. Who here recognizes this picture? This is a killer T cell. This is what I put on that first slide, that opening slide. Killer T cells, they rock. These guys are the true heroes of the day. What we are now finding is that some coronavirus patients who only suffered mild illness have a dramatic T cell response, and that T cell response is actually being a more accurate determinant of immunity. Fantastic. That's the test we should all go get, right? Except for one thing. It's not available here in the United States. So with all that, let's take a step back and look at lessons from history. This is from the swine flu of 2009, and it's an article that was done in Spiegel. And again, my compliments to Ivor Cummins for the fact that he presented this. And this article is fascinating. I'd encourage you to go out and look for it. The really neat part is each time you'll see that the internet search term is up there, so you can go search it for yourself. You don't have to worry about trying to copy down a URL link. What they found is that in the swine flu of 2009, that there was a massive vaccination campaign rolled out, and that it was anticipated to be a really deadly pandemic, and it actually turned out to be a fairly harmless strain of the flu. So why did the world overreact in that particular situation? Well, it's real easy to look at those things retrospectively. I think we're far enough into this one now that we may be able to take that same look and look at what happened from the 2009 scenario and make some better decisions. So let's look at some scenarios now with lockdowns or lack of lockdowns across the world. Most of you have heard of the Sweden situation. What you're seeing here is, and I'm sorry that it's kind of small, all these slides, by the way, will be on my website so that you can go in. It's going to be a free digital download, so just go ahead and go through the process. It doesn't cost anything, and just click on the digital download and you'll be able to get those slides. The orange curve that you're seeing there is the death anticipation level that we had based upon what the epidemiologists were predicting if we did nothing. The grayish curve that you see there is what we anticipated we were going to see if we took some moderate lockdowns. Anyone want to guess what that blue line is? Yeah, that's what Sweden was in reality, with no lockdowns. The estimation was 15 times higher. 15 times higher than what the actuality was. If anyone wants to learn more about lockdowns, and this is, I think, particularly critical for our elected officials who are in a very difficult position trying to figure out and discern the way ahead. There's numerous studies here that our elected officials can go look at. There's tinyurl.com/lockdown studies. Ivor Cummins has done some fantastic work and laid it all out according to the data. So please, please, please share this information with your elected officials because they are really in a rough spot. If you don't know, it's really hard to take those next steps, especially when everyone's like, someone's going to die because of you. None of us want to be on that end of a decision, do we? April 30th of 2020, World Health Organization praises Sweden as a model for other nations to follow. April 30th. It's October. Why are we locked down? You can look this up for yourself, but the World Health Organization official, Dr. Ryan, the Emergencies Program Executive Director, praised Sweden as a model for many other nations to follow. And you can go look up this article. It is available on the internet. I accessed it just yesterday. Well, maybe that was then. Things have changed. October 10th. World Health Organization urges world leaders to stop lockdowns. Do not use it as your primary virus control method. Okay? Dr. David Nabarro appealed to the world leaders, telling them to stop using lockdowns as your primary control method. The part that's really interesting is he said that the only thing that the lockdowns are achieving is poverty. We are possibly looking at one of the largest wealth transfers in at least the history of this country. And it's going on right now. Little bit more information. October 12th, World Health Organization epidemiologist encourages self-regulation. Here's the real key. He praised Sweden's approach for relying on the relationship with the citizens and on the citizens' ability and willingness to implement physical distancing and self-regulation. I believe that if we are to reach a new normal situation, Sweden can in many ways represent a model for the future. You are empowered to choose and do what works best for your family. And that is a perfect transition point for us to move into a little bit more of what we can actually be doing. Just to see what happens with lockdowns versus no lockdowns, what you're looking at here is all 50 of the United States. It's not something you're going to be able to distinguish out where Colorado is. It's in that big mush down there at the bottom. Ivor Cummins is the one who put this together. But the big dark blue line that you're seeing there along the top is Florida. You're looking at Florida's death rate. And then what happened is the governor brought in an epidemiologist. They took a really good look and said, wait a minute, are these lockdowns making sense or not? And so they stopped the lockdowns. And that was at the end of September, which is where you see that cut line. What you're seeing since that time now is Florida no longer under lockdown. And you're seeing that death rate. Okay? It didn't really make a difference, did it? Certainly not one at the level of justifying closing Florida down to tourism, which Florida is extremely dependent on. If Florida doesn't have its tourism, Florida probably doesn't make it. So with all that, scientists came together and put together what's called the Barrington Declaration. What's interesting is when you go to do a Google search for Barrington Declaration, you see all of these mainstream news pieces slamming the Barrington Declaration. Why can't we talk about it? What it actually is epidemiologists and public health scientists who have grave concerns about the damaging physical and mental health impacts of our current lockdown status. What they advocate is a focused protection. So in other words, the aged population, the population that has a lot of comorbidities, absolutely, let's take some precautions with that population. But let's not lock down the healthy. Let's not close the schools. Let's not destroy the social structures. Isolation is far more deadly. It is not the way we were intended to live. Keeping measures in place until a vaccine is available will cause irreparable damage with the underprivileged disproportionately harmed. So with that, okay, fine, let's open up. But we all need to wear face masks, right? This is from 2016. And the reason why it's up here is because we really need to look at some of the science from before all of these mask mandates. We're running into situations currently where you really have to dig deep on the science and discern what is good science and what's bad science. You actually have to dig and figure out who funded the study. Did they have something to gain? And what's really bad now, and Ivor Cummins talks about this in his presentation on Pandemic Town Hall, there have been studies done The answers didn't come up with what they were hoping they would come up with, and the research medical journals are refusing to publish the results. They're not brave enough. There's so much going on from a financial and a political standpoint that is impacting our health and our science arena at this point in time. And it's an entire different discussion, but you need to be aware. There's a lot more going on that meets the eye. What they basically figured out, according to this particular review, is that the face masks were not as effective as they claimed to be, and that it was an old dogma. Now, this one here is particularly interesting. I really like this study. It was actually done and posted by the CDC. There are 14 different randomized control trials that were done in this study. And what they found was that although mechanistic studies support the potential effect of hand hygiene or face masks, evidence from 14 randomized controlled studies of these measures did not support a substantial effect on transmission of laboratory-confirmed influenza. Let me break that down into common speak. Masks didn't stop transmission of the flu virus. Coronavirus is about the same size as an influenza virus. How much good is your mask doing you? Study that was just posted from August 24th. This one was actually done by the University of New South Wales. And what they found was that they had workers from 14 hospitals in the Vietnamese capital, Hanoi, split into 3 groups. Those who were wearing medical masks, okay, N95, properly worn, proper seal. Okay, this isn't just throw it on, throw it off, get your hands underneath it, scratch, none of that type of stuff, okay? This is properly worn masking, right? Really restricts oxygen over time. Some people were doing that. Some people were doing a cloth mask, and others were just doing what would have been considered normal mask wearing processes for like when you do a procedure so you don't end up, inadvertently contaminating a sterile field, those types of things. Okay, just really trying to keep, the bulk of it back. What they found was the penetration of the cloth mass by particles was 97%. It's the equivalent of trying to keep a mosquito from going through a chain link fence. Now, here's the key. For those of you who are into the air sciences, and yes, I worked with all the OSHA folks quite closely for years and done a lot of environmental health work, I understand that there's electrically charged particles and that those get trapped and that sort of stuff. But this is pretty clear about particle size. 44% actually went through the medical grade masks. So medical grade mask is better, but still nowhere near where people really think it needs to be. Here's the really key point. Professor McIntyre said, masks are worn to protect from infection during pandemics and outbreaks, especially when there are no drugs or vaccines available for protection. Translation, it's your Hail Mary. So you can at least try to do something. Do we have good treatment modalities available to us now? Yes, we absolutely do. Now, if you are concerned about wearing something and you do have someone who has higher comorbidity rates and you're looking for something that actually has the science to show that it works, it's personal air ionizers, and they do work. They work quite well. They actually are effective against dust, mold spores, smoke, viruses, fumes, odors, and allergies. I knew about these because of working with all of my mycotoxin mold patients. They were extremely environmentally sensitive. They were able to, again, embrace doing air travel, things like that, based upon being able to use these personal air ionizers. It inactivates the coronavirus particles by generating ultraviolet light. It's basically like lightning in a little box. And so it creates an ionization, which then goes ahead and either destroys those particles or repels those particles from your breathing space, which is what you can see in the diagram there. You can find these air ionizers online. You can also find them on my website because they're a part of what I use for working with the population that I commonly work with. But now let's get to the real heart of where we really need to be. It's right here. We really need to focus on what are the 3 causes of disease and how can we fix those. Every disease is caused from one of 3 issues. It is either nutrient deficiency, toxin overload, or stress. How much stress has this coronavirus created? Stress is the #1 thing that will open you up for disease faster than anything. Hold every thought captive. Take the time to slow down, to enjoy the beauty of things around you. Love on your family, your friends. Don't isolate. And definitely do not isolate those older people. They need you. I had a friend tell me that he hadn't gone and seen his mother because he didn't want to give her coronavirus. I said, oh, you just want to put her in the grave from loneliness. Don't isolate. Love on those that you can. It is the most critical thing going forward from this point, and it is our Great Commission. Nutritionally, there's 2 major things that are going on. We're seeing significant issues with food choices, standard American diet. We're also seeing as a result of our agriculture practices that we're down to like 2% of the mineral content that used to be in our food supply. That's pretty severe. We're seeing the use of agrochemicals like Roundup, otherwise known as glyphosate. It is destroying the gut microbiome, which is the largest extinction going on right now. Without a healthy microbiome, you cannot have a healthy immune system, period. It is critically important to really start looking at your food sourcing. That doesn't mean buy everything organic, but it does mean taking the time to dig in and start looking at food sourcing a little bit more carefully. Toxin overload, the air you breathe, the water you drink, your food choices, your lifestyle. And here's one that is really being rapidly shut down every time it comes up, electrosmog. Electromagnetic frequencies, EMFs. Some of you have heard this as 5G. The science is there. It's incontrovertible. There are issues with EMFs. There's an entire panel of scientists working on it. There's a lot more research needed. But suffice it to say, treat your Wi-Fi and treat your cell phone with more respect. Unplug your Wi-Fi at night. You're not using it when you're sleeping. Give your body a little bit of a break. Don't put your cell phone in your bedroom on your nightstand. If you need to set an alarm, put it in another room. Get a little, old-fashioned alarm clock. Put that on the nightstand. Give your body a break from the constant electromagnetic assault. First, eat real food. This goes back to your gut microbiome. Bacteria are absolutely critical for your health. One of the best things you can do is avoid sugar. It will absolutely create inflammation in the body. So for those of you who are older, you'll see your arthritis gets worse. All of that when you eat sugar. Start cutting that sugar out of your diet, you'll find that you start doing better. Avoid the fake or processed refined foods. Stay away from the trans fats. Vegetable oil, not good. Canola oil, don't touch it with the 10-foot pole. Worst thing you can do. You want to make sure that you're using real fats. And then alcohol, because it, again, ends up being a high sugar. And am I saying don't ever enjoy a good glass of red wine? No, I'm not saying that at all. But absolutely take it down to some pretty good moderation, okay? Do eat the healthy fats, avocado, coconut, real butter. Do not do margarine. Not healthy for your body. Produce grown in nutrient-dense soil, pasture-raised and finished meats. The omega profile is critical. You always hear red meat's bad for you. Well, yeah, if you feed it a ton of grain, because it takes the omega-6s way high. If that is grass-finished, grass-fed, grass-finished beef, it actually has an extremely healthy omega profile to it, because the omega-3s are up where they need to be. So those are the types of meats we want to be looking for. Wild game and seafood. We've all been taught to go for sustainable. I love the idea of sustainable. The issue is when you look at all the antibiotics that are being used in the sustainable seafood, and salmon is one of the most polluted foods there is now, unless you're getting wild salmon. So there are some issues there, and you really do have to dive deep and do some research to get to good information. You'll find that a lot of that type of information is on Healthy Biomes in the membership area. Cultured fermented foods. If there's one thing you start today, I hope it's this. Especially if you do your own ferments at home. This doesn't mean go get the sauerkraut off of the store shelf. This means get the sauerkraut from the refrigerator section. If it's on the store shelf, it's dead. If it's in the refrigerator, it's alive. It does have a very limited shelf life. That's intentional. It's bacteria. They're alive, and they do us good. Lots of spices. Garlic, onions, spices. The more, the better. Work up slowly. Some people actually get a detox reaction when they first start using spices and haven't been using them for a while. Healthy water. Water in plastic bottles, don't do it. There's a lot of phthalates in there. There are xenoestrogens, and they actually cause real issues with hormones. We need to get away from all the microplastics. City tap water, not healthy. Chlorine, not good for your body. It actually blocks uptake of other essential minerals that our body needs. What do you want to do? Spring water in glass bottles. Well water, check the bacterial, the mineral content, things like that. Filtered tap water, purchase the best filtration system that you can with what you have financially. Be careful of the under-counter RO, reverse osmosis water systems. We've had some real issues with mold development in some of those, and I've had some pretty sensitive environmental health patients who didn't realize that they were actually making themselves sick off of their RO water system tank. Structured water. This is one of the most critical lessons that I think we'll be learning as we go forward. And especially when we go back to Scripture and look at water from the Lord's standpoint, I start shaking my head and laughing. Pollock actually has done a beautiful book called The Fourth Phase of Water, Beyond Solid, Liquid, and Vapor. And he actually shows a whole new way of looking at medicine, as well as looking at what happens with the water in our bodies. You have to realize 70% of the water of our body is water, and 99.9% are made up of, all cells are made up of water. Your home is a sanctuary. Treat it like one. All of those awesome scented candles and everything else, they're actually toxic because they're not real, they're chemical. Really try to take down the chemical content in your house because all of those chemicals are putting additional toxin load on your body. Look at what you're putting on your skin. Look at the lotions. Look at your toothpaste. Look at anything that touches your skin, you should be able to eat. If you can't eat it, don't put it on your skin. It's not good for your skin. Try to do things, get rid of the dryer sheets. Those are another heavy chemical load. You know, get those wool balls that you can just throw in the dryer. And then the really fun part is when you get frustrated with someone, you can just throw a wool ball at them. They're soft, they don't hurt. Leave your Wi-Fi off at night. Don't consume electronic media for 2 hours before you go to bed. That is the time that we're supposed to be going into that place of shalom, that place of peace, that place of rest. So we're looking for, everything that just kind of feeds that. Read a good old-fashioned book. Listen to some music. Do all of those things that begin to signal your body that it's time to get ready for sleep. It's also a fantastic time to spend with the Lord. Don't sleep with any lights on in your room. When you think back in history, we certainly didn't have night lights, did we? Other than the moon. Or firelight. So if you are going to have a light on, go for the hue of color that you will find in firelight. You can actually find red light bulbs and things like that, and you can use little things like that in your room if you need to. Keep your cell phone out of the room. Do not allow social media or television or the computer to rule your home. Shut it down. It is looking to steal, divide, and destroy. Don't let it. And absolutely don't allow fear to take control. The fear of man brings a snare, but he who trusts in the Lord will be exalted. So what should you do? Use vinegar, baking soda, other non-toxic cleaners. Use essential oils carefully in accordance with professional guidance. Use HEPA air filtration, especially with all the fires that we've had. This is a very helpful one. Change your air filters on schedule. Hardwire your devices in lieu of using Wi-Fi. This is what we do in my home. So we actually have run internet cabling to our computer systems. Wear blue light blockers or glasses for 2 hours before you go to bed. This helps cut down all that blue light that is preventing the melatonin production, which is what helps you sleep. Also, melatonin is critical for detoxification of the glymphatic pathway in your brain. You need that melatonin. Sleep in total darkness in a quiet room. And the most important part, practice gratitude and enjoy life. Love and laugh a lot. Each day on this earth is a gift. We need to keep that focus. And right now, there's so much coming in trying to keep us from remembering that. So if you have to, just shut it all off. Watch the birds. Go play with a child. And just focus on the little things. Now I'm going to move into talking about nutritionally what we can be doing, nutraceutically, what we can do in order to avoid COVID. This is going to be a pretty fast and furious. Here's the good news. The good news is the entire protocol is available for download on my website. Not only is the protocol there, but all the research behind it. 70 peer-reviewed medical journal articles. First of all, huge shout out to the co-authors that are on this. I couldn't have done it without them. These are some brilliant physicians with a lot of experience who have just got amazing hearts to serve. Dr. Erin Keneally runs a practice in California. It's an integrative medicine practice that sees mostly cancer patients with other chronic illness diseases, autoimmune diseases. That is totally Erin's specialty. If you go on to the Pandemic Town Hall, you will find Erin speaks in the first 2 presentations on specifically this protocol and her experiences with it. This is the story of what's happened with her patients in her clinic. 800 to 1,000 patients a week go through that clinic. Okay? Some of the sickest of the sick. Each patient, from the point that they first call her clinic, most of the time they're calling because they got a cancer diagnosis. So they'll call her clinic. At the point that they call that clinic, her staff jumps into action and starts this protocol on those patients. It takes time to get in to see Erin and all the docs who are in her practice because they're extremely popular. So it may be a little bit of time before they get in there, but they go ahead and get started right now with all the principles that you've seen me talk about here regarding air, water, food, and nutraceutically what they're doing with this protocol. From March to August of 2020, there was 1 patient who had COVID. 1. 800 to 1,000 patients a week, there was 1 patient who had COVID. The way they figured that out is that patient actually had symptoms, so they tested. came up positive on the test. Note, the only COVID testing they did is when there was symptoms. They did not test all of their patients. Statistically speaking, there should have been 14 COVID deaths and hundreds of symptomatic COVID patients over those 6 months. There was one. That's statistically impossible without something in this protocol being effective, if not all of it. Since there was only one case, it's evident that the dietary lifestyle pieces that were put into place, along with the nutritional supplementation, was the difference. This is the ACIM Immune Support Protocol. I don't expect you to be able to read it. It's really hard to get it into 2 slides. But I will hit on the key point in here. Vitamin D3. We suggest 4,000 to 6,000 units per day. It actually depends on what your vitamin D levels are based upon blood test. That said, if you're not currently taking vitamin D, and particularly if you're older, you can start with 10,000 units a day and do that for a short period of time, go in and get your blood test, and then adjust from there. If someone actually is showing symptoms of COVID, what we're doing right now is we're actually getting 100,000 units in 3 days. And the reason is there is a dramatic impact of vitamin D and outcome based upon what we're seeing in the ICUs. If your vitamin D level is over 50, your risk of coming up positive on a PCR test drops by 50%. Your risk of death drops 12-fold. We should just be able to go outside and get a little bit of sun, right? And have it be enough. Well, we're moving into the time of the year where that gets a lot more difficult. The other issue we're dealing with is as we age, or based upon the melanin, the color of our skin, we may not uptake vitamin D as easily. The only way you're going to know if you're in the right range is if you actually get the blood test. Here's the great news. You don't even have to go to a doctor to get the blood test. You can order the blood test yourself. And for those who are members of healthybiomes.com, I'll walk them through all of that and help them with that entire process. Now, healthybiomes.com is an educational coaching resource to empower you to take care of your own health. Don't claim to be a primary care manager in a clinic or anything like that. I'm just providing education and resources. The other piece that's in here that's really critical is zinc combined with quercetin is the secret sauce that works for prevention and rapid elimination of COVID in early stages. Hydroxychloroquine is a zinc ionophore. Quercetin is also a zinc ionophore. The difference is getting the blood levels high enough once you've had a significant level of exposure going on in time, okay? The key to this is don't wait to treat. If you've been around someone that has come down with it, if you start to get that headache, you start to get that sniffle, start treating right away. Don't wait. Keep the right things in your pantry so that you're ready when you need it, you can just grab it and go. High dosing of vitamin C works. So those are all things that are helpful to you. The other thing is magnesium, nascent iodine. The majority of the population, according to Dr. Brownstein, he is finding like 90-something% of the population is deficient in nascent iodine. Proteolytic enzymes. I cannot stress how important proteolytic enzymes are. This is something that everyone should be on. One of the biggest issues that we're running into, even in the younger population now, is the fact that we're having some issues with microvascular clotting. These proteolytic enzymes prevent that microvascular clotting. If you happen to be on a blood thinner medication, Absolutely consult with your healthcare provider. Have that conversation. We don't want to take this too far. You'll see on there melatonin, again, for its detoxification capability. Hydrogen peroxide. If there's one thing I would encourage all of you to have in your home, food grade hydrogen peroxide, no additives, 3%. You can get to 35% and then dilute down to the 3%, but 3% level is very helpful. What several of the physicians have found, and what the research shows very clearly, is that you can nebulize hydrogen peroxide and relieve that tightness of chest issues and rapidly bring someone's O2 sats back up. Dr. Brownstein found that he did not lose one single patient of over, I think, 140 treated using this hydrogen peroxide method. Get a nebulizer. Put it in your pantry. Have it there in case you need it. It also works great for colds and other things as well. So what are the conclusions? We're not in a pandemic. We're in a case-demic. Current testing is problematic. T-cell testing looks promising. Hopefully it'll come to the United States. Lockdowns have a minimal effect on COVID deaths. Don't do them. You're inadvertently hurting the people who need help the most. Those that are in poverty already, those that already have significant other issues going on, they can't take the emotional stress and the isolation. And they need to be able to go back to work. Lockdowns increase the risk of death from cancer, heart disease, suicides. Definitely destroy the economy, as well as the mental illness rate. Masks do not significantly reduce respiratory viral infections, except possibly in nursing homes and hospitals if the correct masks and protocols are used. Personal air ionizers do work to destroy and repel viruses. Most importantly, like in the military when we used to take the old test, proactive measures to detoxify the body reduce risk. This is huge. Detoxification needs to become a way of life for all of us. And prevention and early intervention is highly, highly effective. This is the website, healthybiomes.com. 3 simple steps to download that protocol I just told you about. Step 1, go ahead and click on the little pop-up there that says, "Don't stress, be panda-proofed." Just hit download. It'll take you to the next step, which you can just add it to cart. It's free. It does not take your credit card or anything like that. I just have to have a way to get you to where you can actually get to the download. And then for those who would like, and this is purely optional, there is the ability that if you join Healthy Biomes as a membership, and it has to be as a membership in order to be a private membership organization, that's because of all the situations that's going on right now with healthcare and the medical community. You have to keep it as a private membership organization or you can get severely targeted. Dr. David Brownstein posted his successful cases out on the internet. He got contacted by the FTC and was issued a cease and desist. He was not allowed to share those successful cases, even though it was the patients themselves describing what worked for their cases. There are senators who are physicians who've been called in before the medical board for sharing their success cases. There's a lot more going on than meets the eye. Do not get upset with your healthcare practitioners. They're really stuck between a rock and a hard spot right now. They need your love, they need your support, and your understanding. They're getting a whole lot of information from one side. They're all underneath medical licenses, and they're all getting a lot of pressure based upon those medical licenses. You take that plus the litigious nature that we live in the United States, they really have to protect themselves. So with that, what I can only do from a membership standpoint, because I have to protect myself and protect those who are a part of the private membership, is if people join the private membership, they get access to be able to get those high-grade supplements as they choose from a couple of different sources that are out there that are fantastic sources, and they get a discount on that. But again, that's purely optional. That is not mandatory by any means. What is mandatory is download that free protocol. And the only reason why I've done the supplement part is pharmaceutical has done a pretty good job on the supplement industry at this point. And there's a lot of additives and garbage going on. And it's, you know, everyone, you can't exactly say a car is a car is a car, right? Based upon the age of the car, the make of the car, the model of the car, you will see a difference in the effectiveness. Same thing happens with what you put into your body for fuel, for food. Eating Cheetos is not the same thing as eating a carrot, but they're both orange. That's what's happening in the supplement industry. So don't be fooled. And with that, we're ready to take some questions.
Well, I'm going home to clean out my pantry. That was so informative. All right, we are going to take some questions. So if you have a question and you want to come up, I'll hold the mic for you and you can ask your question.
Seems like detoxing your body is a big thing. What's your opinion on the foot bath ionizer?
Oh.
Like, does that work, or it's just, and the Kangen water, what's your opinion?
Yeah. Water, yeah. Specifically to the foot bath ionizers, what's interesting is, according to the research, and again, I work with a highly sensitive population with some top functional medicine doctors and integrative medicine doctors. What we found is that typically 3 days after doing that ionic foot bath is when we will see a rapid detoxification of those heavy metals and things like that going on. So if you're going to do the ionic foot baths, here's the key. Just be aware there's a lag time from when we actually watch some of that detoxification happen with the heavy metals. And of course, in every situation, you need to make sure that that person's stooling, okay? Bowel. Make sure that the bowels are moving at least once a day, preferably twice. Make sure liver is functional, okay? If they have a gallbladder, it makes it a little bit more challenging. But you really need to make sure that you're working your way up the pathway and getting it clear before you start trying to push toxins out. Because otherwise it's like, hey, I got a clogged sink. Let's just go pour more in it. What happens, right? You'll get a detoxification reaction. You'll see people really not feeling good, and they'll develop what we call Herxheimer responses. So you really want to be focusing on bowel right up front. Then you want to move into looking at liver, kidney, lymphatic system. Work your way up until you get to the cellular level. Don't start at the cellular level. Biggest mistake I see. Do not start with detoxification at the cellular level. Work your way up. Think of it like plumbing. Okay, think of it like plumbing, and it'll really help you out in this, as far as you look at. And that's a lot of the work that I actually do now for my profession. Regarding Kangen water and things like that, I'm going to recommend that you read Fourth Phase Water. It turns the entire science of water on its head. Fantastic book. The most important thing we can do with water is structure it. Okay, we do need to get it clean first. We got to get all of those pathogens out of there. And then we actually need to structure it. And there's a whole other area that's not appropriate to go into here at this point in time, but it turns out that water has a memory. And there's some fantastic studies on that. So one of the things that I would encourage you to do, holding every thought captive, practice gratitude and thankfulness even towards your water. Prayer changes things at a level that is mind-blowing.
Any other questions?
Do you feel any encouragement at all for the future and what might turn this situation around that we're facing, and medically all of the doctors are facing? And I don't really know how to word it beyond that. So
I just so appreciate your question. I could not have asked for a better question. When all this first went down, my poor family, I was just like burying myself in research and really just getting extremely frustrated, and was spending 12, 14 hours a day just diving deep. And finally, I got smart enough to shut down the computer, get on my face before the Lord and say, Lord, what do you say? What's going on right now? You show me from your perspective, please, Lord. What's going on? I got a picture of him roaring with laughter. Roaring with laughter. And it was, peace, be still. I've got this. Get your house in order. Love. Take time. Slow down. Make joy a part of your every day. There's nothing more important than the relationships that I put in front of you. Focus on those. I have incredible hope for the future. And I am actually, there's a scene from a movie called War Room. That little elderly woman who's in the movie War Room, the equivalent of her, looks a lot like her actually, is in my life. She's one of my mentors. She's 93 years old. And boy, she will outwalk you. In that scene in War Room, there's a scene, and many of you might have seen the little gif from it. Devil, you just got your butt kicked. That's what's going on right now. Hang in there. Coming out the other side of this is going to be absolutely amazing. There's some challenges coming, but hang on to the fact that the Lord is in charge. And just as Paul said, I count it all joy. This is a gift, guys. And we're only here for a short time. This is just a brief stop for us, right? So it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster. Enjoy it. Turn it into the best ride ever. Okay. Any other questions?
Can you speak to the issue of the vaccine that they're pushing at this point in time? And as a sub-question to that, there's an article that says if you take the flu vaccine, you have a 36% greater chance of catching the coronavirus. Is that valid?
Based upon, well, first of all, vaccines are not one size fits all. Every single person in here is an individual. And when it comes to vaccination, it is an individual choice. It should never be mandated on anyone, period. You don't know my medical history. You don't know what environmental health things I may still be dealing with. You don't know the status of my immune system. Don't come in and try to take control over that. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is, I'm not anti-vaccine. I am pro-safe vaccines. The problem I'm running into right now is I can't find a single safe one. The work done by Robert F. Kennedy, Children's Health Defense.org. Go, join it, become a member. Robert is doing phenomenal work at getting the truth out there. There's another series that was just done called The Truth About Vaccines, done by Ty and Charlene Bollinger. They also have done some fantastic work in this area. Get out there and educate yourself. There is a higher risk with flu vaccine having you be more at risk for coronavirus. That has been correlated. I've seen it through multiple studies. The other thing is when we talk about the entire vaccine issue, that's the equivalent of a sniper who's looking for one thing only and is going to shoot that one thing only. One of the issues that we're dealing with on the vaccine issue right now is the fact that we don't know if, how long immunity is going to last, number one. And not only that, I've got a sniper who's just looking for one thing only. And in the process of looking for that one thing only, because of all the adjuncts that are in the vaccine, I might actually be damaging my immune system. Personally, I want that iron dome. I want that shield of protection. Where does that start? It starts right here. It starts with my relationship with the Lord and no longer being Wi-Fi'd to the Lord, by the way. We're entering a time where we have to be fiber optic cabled to the Lord, right? Moment by moment. Seeking his viewpoint on things as we move through. So that's number one. Hold every thought captive. Number two, practice all those things that we just talked about. Get your nutrient density up. Be discerning about where your food sources come from. Practice good stewardship. It's a part of why we're here. And then do that detoxification work. Detoxification needs to be a lifestyle. And I don't advocate severe detoxification, by the way. Slow and gentle, day by day. I see too many people who go out there and go, I'm going to do this liver cleanse. I've been eating McDonald's for the last 20 years, but I'm going to go do this liver cleanse. Don't do that. It's dangerous. Work slowly, gently. Do your research. Work with trusted practitioners. There are some just phenomenal people out there doing this type of work now. And discern. And before you do anything, ask the Lord's viewpoint on it. Take your guidance from him.
I'm just curious, are you or anyone that understands things like you do able to give briefings to the governor and to state health agencies? I'm very serious. So,
I would love to give the governor a briefing. I'm not sure how well he'd take it. I do have an appreciation for the fact that I don't like the fact that he's going back to lockdowns. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and believe that he doesn't have access to all of this fantastic information, and instead what's happening is he's getting hit with a very big agenda that is intentional. I don't know him, so I can't comment, really. Absolutely, I just know that the Lord gives us each a mission, and the one that he laid on me was to stand and to speak truth with love. And the only thing I can hope is that our mayor is really trying hard to do the same. And so I will tell you, please pray for them. Pray for all of our leadership. I wouldn't want to be in that seat of having to decide and having someone tell me you're going to kill people if you don't lock down without having the data. But I will tell you there's a governor who's done it right from the start, and that's South Dakota. And look at what happened with the Sturgis rally. Right? Look at that Sturgis rally. Man, that place should have been a war zone after that. Not a peep. Which goes into a whole nother topic that we won't get into today about how contagious are viruses really. So, any other questions?
I just want to piggyback for a second on the vaccine and the flu shot. Are allergy shots different, or do they contain the same risk?
Allergy shots are different. The tough part when we start getting into allergy shots and that whole area, and boy, I could do an entire 2-hour presentation on that alone, is there's two very different viewpoints on how we look at the immune system. Allopathic medicine, mainstream medicine, looks at attempting to shut down the immune system and to keep it from reacting. So for a lot of you who are in that allergy world, a lot of times it feels like you're trying to take the batteries out of the smoke detector. Those allergies are there for a reason. It's your body trying to tell you something. I like to go a lot deeper, figure out what is the root cause of what's going on there. And inevitably, it always ends up being a situation of the body starting to have issues with recognition of self. And what most people don't give nearly enough credit to, and I really learned this from Dr. Lee Cowden and some other phenomenal physicians who have practiced just amazing integrative medicine for years. A lot of times, the root of where a lot of this stuff comes from is there can be emotional trauma, either from our childhood or somewhere else. And this goes back into doing that work with the Lord, spiritually getting right with Him, emotionally working through those things, and then start that detoxification process, all of that. Now, where do you start in that cycle? Well, practitioners like myself start where the Lord tells us to. One of the best things I can do is teach people how to hear that still small voice so that they learn how to walk this through on their own. Far be it from me to ever tell you what's the exact right way to walk your journey. My job is only to come alongside and to support you as you walk through that. So there's some discernment there. A lot of times we'll start with someone physically. If we have to use something to mitigate those allergies for a while, absolutely we do that, okay? We don't leave you in a position of suffering, but we also, as quickly as possible, when we get to some stability, start diving into those other areas on the spiritual, the emotional. Start working that detoxification, starting again with that bowel track, and then working our way up through. Good question.
Yes, as her husband, I'm a plant, but that's okay. During the debates for the presidential election this time, we heard a lot about management and mismanagement of the COVID virus. The last thing we heard out of Trump's position was that they've decided on managing those at high risk, reopening up the economy, and getting people back out and living life once again. From what I've heard from you today, do you support that or not from the medical standpoint?
The research supports that. That is what we call a focused protection. So that is what we're hearing out of President Trump at this time, is that he is advocating that we go to focused protection. Absolutely. Data supports that. Sweden supports that. Right? South Dakota supports that. Florida supports that. How much more information do we need, people? Okay? The other thing I'll say is this. We've got a little bit of conflict of interest going on right now, even in the hospital world. And I don't blame the hospital administrators for this. This is our own issue that we created for ourselves. And that is the fact that a COVID diagnosis, putting a patient on a ventilator, gets you $39,000. An influenza diagnosis gets you $3,000. You're the administrator running a hospital that is desperately trying to stay alive. Boy, I can see some physicians in some real position of conflict, particularly if they're hospitalists that report to the administration of the hospital and do not have their own private practices. Those doctors are between a rock and a hard spot. I wouldn't want to be them. So when you see a lot of physicians choosing to no longer take insurance, choosing to retire, maybe you get a little hint of the reason why. They're trapped. Pray for them.
I've heard a lot during this time that glutathione is great, liposomal vitamins like C or getting glutathione that way is great. So I just was wondering what your thoughts were on that. And also, besides, I know you mentioned fermented foods. like kefir, sauerkraut, those kinds of things. What about probiotics, things like that, that are, I mean, what else do you recommend for gut health? Things like that?
Absolutely. Excellent question. I would love to say it's a one-size-fits-all, particularly when it comes to dealing with SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and all of the other different complexities that go into gut health. I'm going to answer this from a very general level. Love foods that are probiotics. I'm a bigger fan of that than going down and popping your pill. First of all, you think there's like 100 different brands and species of probiotics out there. No, the reality is they're just all recoded with different labels on them. It's kind of like General Mills. They just change the colors. Okay? Probiotics from a food source, absolutely number one, best. There is a caveat to that. When you have a patient who's dealing with mycotoxins, mold, you will find that they cannot do fermented foods for a period of time. Here's the good news. They can heal to the point where they can do them again. So I'm a huge fan of probiotics, all different versions. The key is switch it up, switch it up, switch it up. Also know that depending upon what's going on with you individually, some probiotics are a good fit, some aren't. I'm a huge fan of spore biotics. I want to see that gut reseeded and be able to produce for itself. When you take a probiotic, it goes in, it goes out. It doesn't reseed your gut. Okay? Hence why things I love about the Europeans is they treat their condiments, those are, a lot of times they're fermented, and they do them daily. So that's their little daily dose right there, and they do it in their condiments. Spore biotics actually will reseed the gut. So I prefer the spore biotics, and there's some really good ones out there. The biggest thing is, though, is to actually, again, get with those practitioners that know what they're doing. If you do have a sensitive environmental health sensitivity, if you have an autoimmune disease, be careful in those situations and get some help to walk through that path and tie into some good sources. Next question.
Do you like the vitamin C packets? And also, like, do you do any fast food shopping like Chipotle or anything?
Excellent question, and I so appreciate that question. Vitamin C packets. The way I do my vitamin C is as much as possible. I actually will do my vitamin C from a couple of very select trusted sources. And actually back to the question of vitamin C and liposomal, absolutely love liposomal. Be very careful of your sources. Vitamin C, the majority of it now is coming from genetically modified corn. So when you see that emergency and all that type of stuff that's out there in the mainstream, you don't want to be doing that C. Okay, it's genetically modified, also very likely loaded with glyphosate, Roundup, not what you're looking for. If you can get your vitamin C from a rosehip base, acerola base, tapioca, that's much better. The other thing is there are some brands out there like Nutrimedix vitamin C that has been tested and is clean. Okay, so clean C can be difficult to find. It is out there. A lot of times you'll find it's the more expensive, obviously, and it's professionally sourced. As to your question as to fast food, every once in a while, I will do a Chipotle salad. Every once in a while. The key is all things in moderation, right? I don't do McDonald's at all. Don't do any of that type of stuff at all. But the key is you can do fast food in a healthy way and do it in moderation.
I have a question. Is apple cider vinegar supposed to be helpful for your gut?
Apple cider vinegar is wonderful, again, depending upon the individual. When I'm dealing with individuals who have had mold exposure, mycotoxin issues, they can't do the apple cider vinegar. But for other people, absolutely, apple cider vinegar can be absolutely wonderful. Any other questions?
I'm not a doctor, nor do I have medical background, but my father had had cancer for 18 years, 6 times. And we always go to Singapore doctor, world-class, top-notch doctor. And I had a lot of American friends who told me, You know, for my dental procedure, I have to spend $6,000. And for my broken leg fractured procedure, I have to spend several hundred thousands of dollars. So my question is, coming from 18 years helping my dad facing world-class technology, world-class doctor, my dad's operation doesn't even come close to that astronomical figures. So,
Why?
what can the American people do? Talk to their Senate, change the policies, because this is astronomical monopoly.
We actually do not enjoy nearly the level of health that we should. And it's because it goes back to something called 1986, the Act, when pharmaceutical companies were allowed to start advertising. And America has changed hugely as a result of that. The moment it became economically profitable for pharmaceutical companies to advertise straight to you, we lost our media. And you are now getting bombarded with pharmaceuticals. In the interest of pharmaceutical, their goal is to make money. The best way to do that is to keep you chronically sick and on their products. Good health doesn't have to be expensive. It does take some effort. Invest your money in your nutrition, your detoxification, and holding every thought captive. And you will avoid a lot of those costs. There's a system that is quietly brewing right now amongst functional medicine doctors, integrative medicine doctors, and things like that. I think there's about to be a huge revolution in medicine, and I'm looking forward to it. Mind you, my husband is a perfect example of this. He was told that he had to have both knees replaced. He was told he had to have his gallbladder out. He didn't have any of those surgeries. He's doing great. I was told he had to have emergency gallbladder surgery. I said, do you trust me? Give me 3 days. That was 12 years ago. Still got his gallbladder, no problems. Praise God is right. He gets the credit, not me.
Amen. Can we say thank you again to our guest? Thank you so much. That was excellent. So I just want to close this out with a prayer. So Father, I thank you right now for this information that you have given to us. Lord, you have given us discernment and you have given us wisdom. So let us take this now and bring it before you as our guest suggested, and just download into us, Father, what we each need to do individually. Father, I thank you for all of these people. I ask for traveling mercies as they go home. I put the blood of Jesus over them. They are protected when they come in and when they go out. And Father, I thank you for this vote, for this election that is coming up next week. We pray over our president. We bless him. And Lord, we say that we do have the victory. Regardless of what happens, we have the victory in you. In Jesus' name, amen.